Developers, many of us rely on frameworks for application development. However, where does the longevity of a framework come from? This is the first talk of Empire Node 2014, the Modular Future of Express. As our awesome conference organizers have already said, my name's Jeremiah. I'm known on the internet as Fishhawk123, and you can find me on GitHub, IRC, on Twitter if you'd like to tweet me during my talk, and all kinds of stuff like that. I'm 21, I'm self-taught, and I come from the frozen Arctic tundra of Canada, where we don't ride polar bears to work or anything crazy like that, unfortunately. I'm also an Express core collaborator. And what that means is I do documentation, support, and general maintenance and administration on Express and related projects. So, Express. Who here knows enough about Express that they think they can make something simple with it during my talk? It's pretty good. Who's using Express in production at their company right now? Cool. So Express is a Node.js web framework, and it has the goals of being fast, unopinionated, and minimalist. And just generally not get in your way while you're doing all the cool stuff that you do with these things. And what Express primarily handles is routing. So it's mainly a router that when you go to a URL, it tells you where in your code is actually going to get executed. And it also handles middleware. And middleware is anything that sits in between where your request first comes in and where you respond to that does any sort of processing, including your final route handler. So a bit of history. Older versions of Express, they used something called Connect from middleware. And Connect is another web framework. And everything was linked together, and it was kind of a bit clumsy, and it was hard for people to come in and really add to it or anything because there was so much linkage. But Connect gave us this really great selection of middleware that were built into Connect at the time. And so we began to ask ourselves serious questions about framework longevity. Like, some contributors were coming and going, and it wasn't really working out for us. And we realized that we needed something to change. We needed it to be better. So Express 4 came along. And now Express 4 has its own layer for middleware that was extracted from Connect and changed up to be just right for Express. And all the great middleware that were in Connect were removed out so that they could be used in Connect, Express, or anything that uses Express-like middleware. And to this day, those reside in a GitHub organization called Express.js. That's where we host all of our officially supported middleware. And again, most of this is done in Express 4. So moving forward, what will Express 5 look like? It's been a year since Express 4 is out. A natural iteration has to come at some point. Express 5 will probably just be a single file that imports a bunch of stuff and wires it together. You're thinking, so why is that? Why is that? Why is it just a single file, and where have everything gone? The thing is, during Express 4 and moving all that middleware out so that we could use it with Express differently or with anything else, we realized something. We realized that modularity is like hedgehogs. Hedgehogs. I have 2 hedgehogs at home, and they are really great, awesome pets. So hedgehogs are great. And we realized that modularity is also great. So modularity is where you break down software into smaller parts. And what makes these smaller parts so awesome is that they can be self-contained, so they don't need to have they can have independence from everything else, and you can test them better, and it's easier to look at them. So, and they can be more focused, so they can solve just a specific task, nothing more and nothing less. And these things also allow them to be more reusable, so you can use it maybe in multiple frameworks or in many projects or in all sorts of different places. And they can also be very declarative and much easier to reason about because they can state very clearly what just that bit does. And all of these things help facilitate community and diversity, because it's a lot easier for someone who's coming into a project to look at small bits that already say what they do than to fish around in a framework and find out where everything is. There are some side effects, however. And by side effects, I mean other direct results of modularity. One of those is increased indirection. So indirection is where you see something, but it's not actually defined there, and you need to go look at it. So for example, if you have, you're looking through a bunch of code for some open source project, and you find this line that says, "Get more kittens," and it returns, you expect kittens, but it doesn't say anything. And you look around for it, and you don't see a definition for it, but up at the top, you realize that there's a require statement that's importing that from somewhere. And then you need to look around for the module that actually has that and see what it does. Good comments help here. Better commenting of what you're actually doing with your imported code will definitely help. Another side effect is NPM and effectively all package managers, because package managers are needed to manage all these multiple little bits of software. And specifically, a side effect for us is npm install. npm install is pretty good, but it's not perfect. And when you get a lot of dependencies, npm install really slows down. If anyone has ever tried to install like Ghost, you'll know what I'm talking about, because it has like 1 million dependencies and it takes forever to install. And this is because npm needs to do 2 requests just to check if a module needs to be updated or needs to be installed. And however, it's getting better. The npm team is working on this a lot, and stuff's going to get better in the future. So. Another side effect is dependencies, more dependencies. And this can be a little bit of a hassle because this means you have more to manage. However, managing these things gives you much finer control over your software. And it allows you to do progressive upgrades of things. And so, say you're using like a version of Express 3 and you depend on some legacy bit of one of the middlewares that's in it, say like the body parser or something. But there's some new great router features that have just come out, and they're in a newer version of it. But that newer version also upgrades that legacy bit you're depending upon. And so you can't upgrade. But if those are broken down into pieces, you could keep that legacy bit that your software needs and get all the benefits of all these other things that could have changed, bug fixes, and be added with new features. And that's really good for everyone, really. So to recap, modules can be great because they can be self-contained, reusable, declarative. They can help facilitate diversity, and they give you finer dependency control. And this is why Express is moving to complete modularity. At the beginning of my talk, I showed you my title slide, the modular future of Express. Now you'll notice that Express is in quotations, and that's because this isn't really about Express. See, Express as the module and framework is just a little part of what actually makes Express Express. On top of Express, I already mentioned that in Express 4 we have Express.js for all of our official middleware. And with these two things, there have been a bunch of community frameworks that have grown up around them and that maybe wouldn't exist without these things. And that's really cool. And these things are really able to build off of these already existing parts. Frameworks such as Sails, Loopback, and Kraken are good examples. But now we're also adding something called pillaris and jshttp. And with these new additions, more frameworks are able to take advantage of this increasing modularity in Express. So Color uses some of these parts, and Happy even uses some jshttp modules. Today I'm going to talk specifically about the Express part, and even more specifically about pillaris. And first, jshttp. So jshttp, other than being a mouthful to say all the time, as Douglas Wilson, our lead maintainer, said, the business of jshttp is community service, and the reason behind that is this is a collection of standards-enabling HTTP modules. And if you're wondering what I mean by standards enabling, I mean that every single HTTP implementation that is standards compliant is going to work with every other HTTP implementation that's also standards compliant. And so this will work into the future, so all your stuff that uses these things will be able to work with everything else. So standard support is really an interoperability enabler. And ultimately, it helps prevent vendor locking. The stuff we're doing on jshttp is already being collaborated on by a bunch of other people from different frameworks, and we'd love to see more collaboration on them, use cases, anything like that is super cool. The next thing I'm going to talk about is pillaris. And pillaris is our most recent initiative to really modularize Express. Pillaris has the goal of becoming a build-your-own framework. And what that is it's a collection of framework components that are going to be extracted out of Express, and new ones are going to be added in. And some of these components are going to be interchangeable with each other. So if you don't like Express's router, in the future, you'll be able to swap a different router in and still use all the other stuff that Express uses, or swap some of those other parts out to get different stuff than Express would use. And also, a lot of these components are going to be highly battle tested because our main ones are already being pulled from Express, and Express is used by a huge number of people and a huge number of servers, and these things are tested in production. The best way to test them is at scale, really, as well as having really, really good unit tests. However, pillaris is still somewhat of a work in progress. We're still working on actually extracting some of the core things from Express, such as the router and the view abstraction. But these things will be available when Express 5 comes out, which will be soon TM. Really, though, pillaris is about future frameworks. It's about, if you'd like to, you can build your own framework with it, or you can use one of the community's pre-built frameworks that they've built with it, such as Express or Sails or any other thing that people come up in the future with. And as such, pillaris is really, all these things are open for collaboration and discussion, and we'd love to hear about them. And ultimately, pillaris is the modular future of Express. It's a future we want to build with you, the community, to make these things absolutely great. And so you can ask all the things at Fishrock123, at me, wherever I am, around the conference all day. I'll be around. You can speak to me, and you can discuss these things wherever. Thank you.